All right. Going to go on a bit of a tangent through some other land reforms in Asia. Start with China. So, after World War II, Mao comes to power in China, and along with that, he expropriates the local landholding elite, redistributes the land to the peasants initially. Later on, though, as Mao becomes more Marxist, China switches to large collective farms. Um, so initially, it's small scale farming, but then there's a switch to these large farms where they're very top down, very command and control, where the crop mix, the work schedule is dictated from above, and local knowledge is really dismissed. All right, this is part of what's called the Great Leap Forward in this period where Mao is really trying to catapult China past the Western capitalist powers. It's a massive failure. In terms of number of people dead, this is the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century. Although it's often not covered or not heard about that much or not focused on. So I don't. Part of the reason is that the information from China is very opaque, so we're not exactly sure what happened, and we're not exactly sure on the death toll. So there are some estimates lower than 30. I'm not the lowest, maybe around 20. There are some estimates higher than 55, up to 80 or even 100 million people dead. So the most credible estimates I think would put it somewhere in this range of the people that died as a result of this policy. Again, the goal of this policy is to sort of catapult China forward with these collective farms, and then there are other policies as well, and it's just it's a human disaster. All right, so they're forced into these collective farms. Um, Everything's owned by the state, so they essentially have the workers have no voice in their work hours or the type of work they're doing. Sort of the local knowledge on the crop mix, that sort of thing, or the techniques is dismissed. It's all top down, and the result is massive starvation. So these large collective farms are terribly inefficient, and people starve. And in this sort of top down society or top down organization, nobody kind of wants to be the person who's telling their superiors that things aren't working. All right, because you'll be blamed. So everyone's saying, hey, everything's going fine. This plan's going along okay. Meanwhile, there's just a really a human travesty happening here. On the manufacturing side, they really want to overtake Britain is their goal. And they build these primitive furnaces. They're saying, hey, let's bring in everything you got that's made of metal or iron. We're gonna use this as our raw materials. So they melt down pots and pans. But in terms of the production techniques, they don't really have good production techniques. So basically they take perfectly good items like pots and pans, basic tools, melt them down, and then produce something that is useless. So they're actually going backward. All right, and I have linked a video that kind of profiles this that I'll put underneath this on the website. Another failed policy is this war against the sparrows that Mao undertakes. The rationale is the sparrows eat the grain, so they decide to kill the sparrows. Sparrows are murdered in mass, and the result is now insects that the sparrows ate run rampant, and those destroy the crops, and even larger destruction than the sparrows themselves inflicted. So another failed policy of the period. So all of this is an example of kind of a failures coming from a dismissal of local knowledge. This sort of command and control, top down. We're going to do this. We're going to do this without thinking through unintended consequences, without proper feedback loops, saying, hey, this is not working. Now, in the late 70s, Deng Xiaoping he very much reorients China, into a market economy. He essentially adopts, market reforms. Essentially, he switches them to a market economy. He kind of dismisses this command and control or socialism of the past. His famous quote. He's like, if a I don't care if a cat is black or white. If it catches mice, that's all that matters. Something along those lines. Now, China still has a large degree of state ownership, and a large degree of or totalitarian. Essentially, it's a one-party rule. A large degree of corruption. Essentially, if we go back to our definitions of, well, we'll scroll all the way back, but they basically just adopt a market-oriented system and still have a large degree of state ownership. Although there is some competition in some industries, but there is still significant state ownership. And the country has obviously seen incredible growth since this switch from command and control to market oriented system. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come. I don't know why I say quick break. I'm going to take a quick break. You can take a break as long as you want. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with some other land reforms.